Generally, the dollars, euros, pounds, or shekels in your bank account will lose 2 or 3% of their value every year. I'm a believer in having some cash. I think it gives you flexibility to buy things or to expand your business when conditions are good. But you don't want to be entirely in cash. And yet, I think a lot of people struggle with how to diversify their assets, particularly following a very chaotic 2020 in which many people believe inflation could become much worse due to crazy money printing policies. Today, I'm going to share with you 4 alternative stores of value to keeping your money in cash. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson here at Nomad Capitalist. My team, my network, and myself help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs all around the world legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Let's talk about stores of value, some that you've heard of, some that you might not have thought about. Now, I've been talking for a long time about things like second residences, second passports. I understand these in and of themselves aren't stores of value, and I'm not going to claim that as one of my 4 stores of value in this video. However, I do think, as an aside before we get started, diversifying and having alternatives around the world has a certain residual value, particularly if you live in a increasingly high tax, high regulation, anti-freedom country. So certainly I think that in addition to just storing your money in things, I think if you are a 7, 8, 9-figure individual, putting some money into safeguards. You safeguard the rest of your wealth. Have you safeguarded it from being a citizen of one country? That's where I would start. Now, let's talk about stores of value. The first thing that, of course, has been in the news a lot lately, cryptocurrency. I don't see as many people talking about this as I think should be talking about it. And you've got all-time highs in things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, all these different crypto markets. And a lot of people are expecting, with so much institutional money coming in, they expect that to increase. And so if you look at Bitcoin's performance against inflation, it's of course not even close over the last 10 years. I remember some of the first Bitcoins that I got back in late 2013 for something like $800. Now, I have said, from the context of stores of value, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is somewhat of a hedge, it's somewhat of a profit potential. I'm not putting my entire net worth into cryptocurrency. Certainly some people disagree with me. I respect that. If your entire net worth is in crypto, that's fine. I know people and I help people all the time who they started out with 50 grand. That's all they had to their name, and now they have $10 million. And it's all in crypto. And they're looking to diversify it at some point. But certainly crypto has been a great store of value, and one that I think that as you see it continue to mature, one that it's worth, in my opinion, divesting out of into other stores of value to lock some of that increase in value into other inflation-resistant assets. The second store of value, another well-known store of value, is gold and silver, one that some crypto investors seem to love and some seem to think is a relic. But for me, I like the hedge of precious metals. I like storing them overseas in very private, very secure vaults. It's one of the things that if you are a U.S. citizen, for example, stored outside of the banking system, allocated to you, it's not reportable asset legally. We're not talking about hiding anything. It's not what we do, but legally it can be non-reportable asset. And so I think in addition to that benefit, you can diversify and you can get this inflation resistance. Obviously, cryptocurrency is new, and I like that. I also like the long track record of gold. I also like the fact that compared to the historical averages, silver is underpriced, even though some of the spreads are higher in silver. I like having both. I think those are great stores of value. And I think that when I talk to a lot of folks who are at the higher levels of whom we work with, 9-figure people, for example, they have a respect for, even if it's 2 or 3%, having something of what they own in gold and silver. And so I like to copy that, whether it's 2%, 5%, 10%, 20%. I'm not going to put everything in gold, and I'm going to buy in over time. But I think those are 2 great stores of value. Now, another third store of value that I think is really important and probably not talked about nearly enough. I first heard this as a big thing from Jim Rogers. I don't remember which one of his books. I've read most of his books, but years ago, Jim Rogers said that the farmers are going to be the ones driving Ferraris in the future. And if you look at the trends around the world, this is probably the most undervalued store of value, is agricultural land. Land in general, right? You look at the world population. I remember being in grade school, 9 years old. Remember the population clock on the wall was 6 billion. Now we're pretty close to 8 billion. and that's going to increase exponentially over time. You see less and less available land. You see emerging countries. The jobs that people bemoan have been taken from Western countries that have gone to places like Malaysia, Vietnam, China, which have increasing middle classes, Latin American countries with increasing middle classes. These people are eating more and more meat. Meat takes up more space. They're eating foods that are more dense, and so there's not as much land. Now, what you are seeing certainly is you're seeing Beyond Meat, for example. You're seeing farming indoors being very successful and stacking things 10 rows high. And I certainly think you will see innovation like that, particularly in the West. I think in a lot of countries, I look at the fact that 7 or 8 years ago, I took a friend of mine to Macau, and we're staying at the MGM overlooking the road, and he's really not traveled much out of the U.S., and he's watching as all these guys in Macau are literally clipping with manual clippers the hedges in the middle of the street. And he's saying they don't give these guys like a weed whacker or something with some electricity. And there's just, even in Macau, let alone some of the more developing countries, there's just not the economics to do that. And so I think, well, it's great you have that in the West, and that could be a great investment play in the West. I think certainly agricultural land, especially in some developing countries, is going to be great. I think land in general, if you follow, you have cities in emerging countries that are expanding very rapidly, and if you can buy land, not so much in Asia where it's harder to buy land, but if you can buy land in places in developing parts of Europe or in Latin America, you can buy land that is buildable land. Where people are moving. You can buy agricultural land. I think both of those are a great store of value, rather inflation resistant. And at least you keep pace while having an asset that, quite frankly, I think is at least a safe part of your portfolio in that, it's harder to go and take land, right? I mean, digits in a bank account is one thing, but land is a bit more difficult. I think it's a great store of value for part of your portfolio, and I have bought land in numerous countries around the world on that basis, and just recently have been offered many times what I paid for one of those pieces of land just a couple of years ago, partially because the suburban pattern where I bought it is now moving out to my land. But the fourth store of value is a bit more open-ended, and that's what I would say is uncorrelated foreign investments. I think people are looking for stores of value oftentimes within the world that they live in. And if you live in the Western world in particular, you're probably not thinking outside of that Western world bubble. I see so many people who say, I can't leave the United States. Things may be going terribly, but where are you going to go? Because they've only considered the UK, Canada, and Australia, right? That's what they know. They haven't thought about the places that we talk about here that are actually lowering taxes, increasing freedoms, moving in the right direction. And so if you can find markets, particularly frontier markets, as well as emerging markets that are uncorrelated with the currency that you're in, for example, or that are uncorrelated with the stock market, for example, or uncorrelated with money printing and debt and stuff like that. I think those are great investments. Again, if you are, for example, a U.S. citizen, foreign real estate that you own in your own name is not reportable. Income may be reportable. If you own it in a corporate structure, that's reportable. And so, of course, you'll want to get the proper tax advice, whether working with Nomad Capitalist or working with whomever else. But that's a benefit. But the fact, I've talked about one example, for example, Cambodia, I think one of the most investable frontier markets. Colombia, I think not quite a frontier market, but I think investable and headed in the right direction. Honduras, potential in some places. I look at markets like Uzbekistan that are opening up, Egypt that are opening up, Turkey, which I think has been beaten to a pulp in some areas. And I say to myself, some of these places are not going to be as correlated with the markets that you're involved in, and therefore you're getting an alternative store of value that's where the risk-return ratio is rather asymmetrical. And so you can get perhaps rental yields and certainly capital growth that is going to exceed what you would get in your own country, and it's going to be a better store of value. And so on top of that, you can get the benefit of diversification, potentially into other currencies, diversification into other regions, taking advantage of places that are growing faster than your country. It's really what we talk about here at Nomad Capitalist. So I think pure diversification into assets on an asymmetrical basis is itself a store of value. Those are four that I think any portfolio should at least consider. And my perspective as a relative pragmatic entrepreneur is being involved in all of them, quite frankly. I don't go all in on anything. I like to have a little bit of everything. Certainly, if you buy land, if you buy real estate, if you do certain deals, In other countries, you might get a residence permit out of it. You might get a citizenship out of it. And that speaks to my earliest point on kind of the residual store of value. I think it's a big value going forward for Westerners is going to be having options that 10 years ago you never would have thought you needed as governments increasingly tighten the noose. So doing these things can get you residence, can get you citizenship, can increase your financial privacy, can increase your asset protection, but I think as pure stores of value, they are all good options. And so I'd like to hear from you. What is your favorite store of value? Are you a crypto hodler? Are you a so-called gold bug? Are you buying real estate all over the world? Leave a comment below. Or maybe you're like me. Maybe you're doing a lot of everything and you want more ways to get the benefits, like the immigration benefits out of it. Leave a comment below and I want to hear from you. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.